Just a week ago, a Canadian family lost $10,000 because they didn't have the required documents to travel to Jamaica. As you will see later, this might have never happened if only they watched this video. So if you're planning a trip to Jamaica anytime soon, here comes the latest Jamaica COVID update 2021. As it turns out, this video might actually save you a few $1,000s. Is it safe to travel to Jamaica right now? Yes, Jamaica is open for travel, so if you wish to come and enjoy all the attractions, resorts, beaches, restaurants, shops and so on, everything is available. However, there have been some changes in travel requirements. From the 29th of October, some restrictions have been lifted, but others are still in place. So let's have a look. Before you travel to Jamaica, step number 1, go to the official government website for visitors that has all Jamaica travel information. It's called visitjamaica.com Travel Authorization. It is being updated all the time and the link is in the description. You must fill out a travel authorization form online on that website within 7 days before your intended travel date and wait until it gets approved. Most applications are now instantly approved, but if you don't receive a response within a few days, you can use a direct contact form on the front page of the website. Just scroll down until you see needs support. It is important that you fill out one form per person, not one form per family. So if your family has 5 members, you will need 5 approved forms. So apply for each one of them separately. All persons traveling to Jamaica require a travel authorization document. A travel authorization is not required to book your flight. It is, however, a requirement for check-in and boarding, and airlines will not allow passengers to board without it. This is exactly what unfortunately happened to that Canadian family. They could have made the flight despite all the chaos at the airport on that day, but they missed it because they didn't have travel authorization forms.
By the time they made it to the check-in desk, there wasn't enough time to fill out 4 additional forms.
For any family, to lose 10 grand, for a lot of people, that's a lot of money.
The customers, unfortunately, did not have the appropriate travel health documents with them to travel to Jamaica.
The new normal we have in the world can indeed be confusing, and I really hope this family still makes it to Jamaica. But talking about health documents, all travelers to Jamaica 12 years or older have to do the COVID test, regardless if they are vaccinated or not. Fully vaccinated travelers do have bonuses, but we will talk about them later. Accepted test types are here. Antigen is the cheapest and fastest, takes like 15 minutes to get results. The date of the sample collection must be within 3 days of the travel date. And this is another common problem that people encounter. They simply take the test way too early. And if you're wondering how can they fail at counting 1, 2, 3, well, do you start counting from the day of the test sample or from the next day? Do you include the day of the flight or should it be the day before? What if you have connecting flights? So to make sure there is no confusion, simply use the test date calculator on the official website. Input your arrival date in Jamaica and it will show you what's the earliest day when you can take the test. You don't need to upload your test results. You don't need them when you're booking the flight and you don't need them when you're filling out your travel authorization form. However, you will need to show them at the check-in desk and when boarding your flight. Travel bans for all countries have now been lifted, so anyone from any country can now travel to Jamaica. Keep in mind though, rules can change, so make sure to check the pinned comment under this video where I'll be adding any updates if they come up. There are areas where you can freely travel in Jamaica from day 1 regardless any quarantines. They're called resilient corridors and include all the north coast of Jamaica and a large part of the south coast. Actually, almost all the areas where popular attractions are located and where tourists usually go anyway. Yes, you can travel between resilient corridors or go outside of resilient corridors in case of an airport transfer. For instance, if you arrive in Kingston Airport, which is outside of resilient corridor at the moment, you can travel to Montego Bay and stay there. Most tourist attractions within resilient corridors are open. This includes beaches, waterfalls, activities, and so on. All of this has been the same for the last year, but now a few things that have changed. Curfew hours have now been relaxed, so now they are the same for all days, from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. There used to be no movement days in Jamaica when on Sundays people couldn't go anywhere. Now these are removed. These new rules for curfew hours are valid from the 29th of October until the 6th of December. So check the pinned comment for any updates if they come up. What do curfew hours mean anyway? It means that from 8 p.m. pretty much everything is closed, but outside of these times, you are allowed to go to attractions, restaurants, and shops. There is another important thing to note. Even during the curfew hours, that is, when everything is closed, you, as a traveler, can leave your property if you need to travel between your accommodation at the airport or if you need to relocate from one accommodation to the other, provided you have a proof of your reservation or flight. And yes, you can visit the attraction called Luminous Lagoon close to Falmouth. As long as you go there before 7 p.m. and use licensed transportation, you can return from this attraction even when curfew begins. If you're not fully vaccinated, when you come to Jamaica, you have to quarantine regardless of where you're staying. In resorts, Airbnbs, private residence, doesn't matter. Quarantine rules are the same and apply to everyone who's not vaccinated and traveling to Jamaica. However, when you are in quarantine in Jamaica, it doesn't mean you have to lock yourself in and isolate. See for yourself. Once in quarantine, you can leave your property and travel anywhere you want within resilient corridors. You can visit all tourism attractions, restaurants and shops. You can use private transport such as a rented car or a private taxi. So what's the quarantine then? Here are the restrictions. You're not allowed to go outside of the resilient corridors unless you're traveling between the corridors or to the airport. You cannot visit events such as parties, weddings, funerals. You cannot go to any public gatherings like a church. And you cannot use public transport such as buses or route taxis. All of these restrictions apply for the first 14 days of your trip, but this doesn't mean that you have to come to Jamaica for the whole 14 days. You can come for only one day, that's fine, then you can just leave. But if you're staying longer than 14 days, on day 15 you can get a quarantine release form from the Ministry of Health in order to leave the resilient corridor if you need to and use public transport. All of this applies to visitors who are not fully vaccinated. If you are fully vaccinated, you're required to quarantine for only 8 days instead of 14. What's more, fully vaccinated persons also have the option to take an approved PCR test, and upon presentation of negative results, they can be released from the quarantine order completely and travel outside of resilient corridor, use public transport from day one, and so on. Accommodation. If you go to the official website, there is a list of so-called COVID-19 protocol compliant approved listings, and it is designed to encourage guests to choose accommodation from this list. But it doesn't mean you have to. You can choose any accommodation you want anywhere in Jamaica, including Airbnbs, families and friends, even if they are outside of the resilient corridor. If you don't see your accommodation in the list, simply select private home and get the address with a pin on the map. Accommodation choice does not influence the approval of your travel authorization, but it does influence the kind of form you receive as a result. If you select private home within resilient corridor, you will get Form B, which says home quarantine order, which makes it sound as if you have to isolate, but you don't. If you read the form in details, it tells you to isolate only if you have COVID symptoms. But if you don't have COVID symptoms, you can travel within resilient corridors, visit attractions, restaurants, shops, and so on. Basically do the same as guests who stay in resorts and other tourist board licensed accommodations. Please note, however, all of this is relevant only if you're a tourist. If you're a Jamaican resident, you will have to isolate for 14 days when you come back to Jamaica, unless you're fully vaccinated. For business travelers, there are separate rules as well. Please check the link in the description. Now the last but not least, COVID test before you leave. There are plenty of places in Jamaica where you can do a COVID test before your return flight home. The antigen test costs between $50 to $55 per person, while PCR test is around $150 per person. Some hotels in Jamaica offer test services on their property, but please keep in mind these services can attract an extra fee, which means you might be paying $200 for a test that costs only $50. The description has a link to all test centers in Jamaica, and as a backup plan, Montego Bay Airport itself has a COVID test center available to you. Antigen test results there take only 15 minutes to be ready, but the lines can take some time. So just make sure if you wish to do the test at the airport, come around 4 hours before your flight. So to wrap it up, it might seem like a lot of rules, but this is only because I'm very detailed and trying to cover all the important questions. But in short, all visitors who come to Jamaica have to fill out travel authorization form per person and do a COVID test right before they travel. They should stay anywhere within resilient corridors in any type of accommodation they want. Then they can visit all the attractions, restaurants and shops, provided they do it outside of curfew hours. And before they leave Jamaica, they can do a COVID test. That's it. These rules and regulations are not complicated. What visitors should really think about is to make sure they follow them to minimize any risk of COVID transmission to the locals and other travelers. This episode is not designed to encourage or discourage from traveling to Jamaica. It is created to cover the current situation on the island and help visitors to make a better informative decision about their trip to Jamaica and avoid losing thousands of dollars. Instead, bring all this money to Jamaica and spend it here. That's it for today. My regular content is coming up soon. Remember to check the pinned comment under this video for the latest update. And if you found this video useful, don't forget to give it a like and share it with someone who might need it as well. Thanks to all the subscribers and all the patrons who support this channel. If you wish to join our team of patrons, you can do so by following the link to Patreon in the description. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Irina, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.